He didn't scream. He didn't hesitate. He simply ended 5 reputations in 10 seconds. To Rax, a Vexillian born with 4 arms and a carapace that could deflect shrapnel, the creature known as Elias Thorne looked like a mistake of evolution, a biological rounding error. The human sat 3 rows ahead in the strategy hall. His posture slumped, his skin unarmored and disturbingly soft. He had no claws, no fangs, no venom sacs. Just a fragile bipedal mammal from a blue marble that Rax assumed was a resort world. Or perhaps a petting zoo. We thought they were prey because they lacked claws. We forgot that hammers don't need sharp edges. Instructor Xylock was droning on about orbital pincer movements, his voice a monochromatic hum that seemed to suck the oxygen out of the orbital vanguard citadel, and the air smelled of recycled ozone and the stale tang of nutrient paste. Rax shifted in his seat, his lower arms tapping a rhythm against his data pad. It was a Tuesday. It was boring. It was safe. Until the Iron Five decided it wasn't. They were the apex of the Academy's social food chain, led by Gorgon, a Bronin distinct for his sheer kinetic density and a cruelty that felt almost architectural in its design. He was flanked by Click, Lyra, Borak, and Vex. A walking wall of muscle, chitin, and bad intentions. They moved through the aisles with a heavy, arrogant stride of predators who knew the game was rigged in their favor. Rax watched, a knot of unease tightening in his secondary stomach. He knew the target before Gorgon even stopped walking. Elias was focused on his screen, oblivious. He looked like something that would break in a stiff wind. That was the tragedy of it, Rax thought. The universe was full of hard things, and Elias was just soft. Gorgon didn't say a word. He simply upended a tray of industrial-grade chemical sludge, leftover sealant from the repair bay by the smell of it, directly onto the human's head. The thick, blue, viscous fluid slapped against Elias's skull and dripped down his neck, soaking into the collar of his uniform. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens right before a hull breach. Every eye in the strategy hall locked onto the scene. Instructor Xylock stammered something meaningless, but his authority evaporated instantly against the sheer mass of the Iron Five. Rax winced. He expected the human to shrink, to cower, and to wipe the filth from his eyes and beg for a towel. That was the natural order. Strong eats weak, hard breaks soft. But Elias didn't move. Not at first. Then a subtle shift occurred. It was invisible to most, but Rax, with his multi-spectrum vision, saw the physiological change. The human's heart rate didn't spike in panic. It dropped into a rhythmic, sledgehammer beat. His pupils dilated, swallowing the irises. His muscles, previously loose, tightened with a sudden, hydraulic pressure. This wasn't fear. It was an adrenaline cascade. Elias stood up. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a heavy blast door sliding open. The sludge dripped from his chin, but he didn't wipe it away. He turned to face Gorgon. The Bronin towered over him, nearly 2 feet taller. A creature built for war smiling down at a creature built for filing paperwork. Gorgon laughed, a wet, rumbling sound. His crew smirked, waiting for the apology, waiting for the submission. Elias looked at Gorgon, and for the first time, Rax saw the truth. The human's eyes were devoid of anger. They were empty, cold. It was the look of a mechanic assessing an engine that needed to be dismantled. "You have 3 seconds to apologize," Elias said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room's ambient hum like a laser drill. Gorgon blinked, genuinely confused. "Or what, soft skin? You'll bleed on me?" Elias didn't answer. He just adjusted his stance, his weight sinking slightly, grounding himself against the deck plates. The scariest thing wasn't the violence that hung in the air. It was the restraint. It was the terrifying realization that the human wasn't deciding if he should fight. He was calculating exactly how much damage he was allowed to inflict without killing them. The countdown in Rax's head hit 0. Gorgon lunged. A mistake. The Bronin's mass was a freight train, but Elias didn't meet it. He slipped inside the guard, a blur of motion that defied the sluggish gravity of the station. His right hand, stiffened into a spear, drove directly into Gorgon's windpipe. The sound was wet and distinct, cartilage collapsing under extreme, focused pressure. Gorgon gagged. Clutching his throat, his eyes bulging, he was effectively out of the fight in second 1. Click moved next, mandibles clicking in anticipation of a grapple. Elias didn't even look. He pivoted on his heel, catching the alien's extended limb and twisting it against the joint's natural rotation. The snap echoed off the metal walls like a gunshot. The click shrieked, a high-pitched modulation of agony, and crumpled. Second 3. Lyra, the 6-armed combat specialist, tried to overwhelm him with volume of strikes. Elias dropped his center of gravity, weaving through the flurry with an economy of motion that made Rax's head spin. He found an opening in her chitin armor, the solar plexus, and drove his elbow into it. She folded instantly, gasping for air that her paralyzed diaphragm couldn't pull in. Second 5. Borak charged blindly. Elias stepped aside, waited for the commitment of weight, and stomped downward on the alien's leading knee. The joint bent the wrong way. The sickening pop made Rax flinch in his seat. Borak hit the deck screaming. Second 7. Vex, the last of the Iron 5, saw his entire world dismantle in a heartbeat. He turned to run, his boots scrambling for purchase on the smooth floor. He made it 2 steps. Elias closed the distance in a burst of kinetic density that seemed impossible for a frame so slight. He caught Vex by the back of the neck and drove the alien's skull into the floor plates. Thud. Second 10. Silence returned to the strategy hall, heavier than before. The Iron 5 lay broken in a semicircle around the human. Gorgon wheezed. Click whimpered. Vex didn't move at all. And in the center of the carnage stood Elias Thorne. He wasn't panting. He wasn't trembling. He reached up, wiped a streak of blue sludge from his cheek, and looked at Instructor Zylok. Apology accepted, Elias said softly. The medics arrived 2 minutes later. They looked at the broken bodies, then at the human standing politely with his hands clasped behind his back. And their confusion was palpable. Rax watched Elias let the security team escort him away. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a librarian who had just finished organizing a shelf. That night, Rax didn't sleep. He sat in the archives, his 4 hands shaking as he pulled up the file on Terra Prime. The data made his blood run cold. He had assumed Earth was a garden world. He was wrong. It was designated Cataclysm Class. It was a planetary forge of shifting tectonic plates, weather systems that could strip flesh from bone, and a gravity well that compressed life into dense, hard knots of survival. He read about the predators, the diseases, the ice ages, and then he read about the humans. Persistence hunters. They didn't survive because they were the strongest. They survived because they wouldn't stop, like they were designed to walk down prey until its heart exploded from exhaustion. They healed faster, fought harder, and possessed an adrenaline response that turned pain into fuel. Earth isn't a cradle. It's a forge that burns away everything that can't survive. And Elias was the steel that came out of the fire. The tribunal was short. Rax stood in the gallery as Elias faced the Board of Admirals. The charges were severe, excessive brutality. "Cadet Thorne," the presiding admiral asked, "you neutralized 5 combat-class species in under 12 seconds. Do you deny the severity of your response?" "No, sir," Elias replied. His voice was level. "But I dispute the intent." "Explain." "If I had intended to kill them, Gorgon's trachea would have been crushed, not bruised. Click's arm would have been severed. Vex's neck would be broken. I used minimum force necessary to stop the threat." The room went dead quiet. The admiral looked at the footage again, then at Elias. The realization hit everyone at once. He hadn't lost control. He had been holding back. Elias was cleared of all charges. When he returned to class the next day, the atmosphere had shifted. The hallway cleared as he walked. No one shoved, no one sneered. There was a 3-foot buffer of empty space around him at all times. Rax watched him sit in his usual spot, 3 rows ahead. Elias pulled out his datapad, looking as soft and breakable as ever. But Rax knew better now. He knew that under that pale skin was a history of violence so old it was written in the DNA. He realized then that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy wasn't a creature with claws or armor, else it was the one that looked harmless right up until the moment it decided you were a problem. Rax leaned back in his chair, keeping his eyes on the back of Elias's head. He would never spill a drop of water near that human as long as he lived.